It's time for Fundamentals of Car Audio, brought to you by DNF Tool Drawer, the place you can find all your cool tools. Well, we have a great fundamentals for you this week. Let's go to the laptop. And today's fundamental is how to use a digital multimeter for 12 volt part 1.
I like the chocolate thing.
I know, I was hungry last night when I was making it. So, this is going to be a multi-part series, at least a minimum of 3. We're going to break this down into DC, AC, and continuity. The first one up, however, is DC. There are a few actions we use digital multimeters for in car audio. First, DC volts. The little icon there on the left, is direct current symbol. So when you have your digital multimeter with the line with the dashes underneath it, which I know if you've watched the video, you've heard me say, that is going to be DC voltage. In DC, current, both positive and negative, are both of equal importance. Most people feel the power is somehow more important. Very false. DC voltage is a circle starting at the positive and ending at the negative. This is the most important point that you guys have to beat into your heads. It is a circle. Start, end. If this end negative sucks, it all sucks. Doesn't matter. Okay? Sound like Nick. Okay? DC volts. Example 1. Testing voltage at an amplifier. Connect both positive and negative lead power to the amp. So what you see in the picture here is us testing to see what kind of voltage we're getting at the amplifier. We just go to the set screws on the amp. Oh no! We only have 8.4 volts. What could possibly be the problem? Moving to example 2. If the voltage is off, connect the positive lead to the amplifier and find a different ground point. This is for testing for a bad ground. So as you can see in the image there, we have our positive test lead going to the positive wire, and we found a piece of metal that we can test in the car. And boom, we have 13.5 volts. This is telling us that somewhere there is a bad ground where our, basically our amplifier ground is not in a good spot. It could be something as simple as, let's say, a loose connector, or we forgot to sand the paint away, or we used an improper wire, or something along those lines. But basically the problem is not our 12 volts. Connecting the positive lead to the battery and the negative to the amplifier will test for positive. That means doing the opposite of what we're doing here. So if we were to take a piece of wire, attach it to the end of our positive lead, stretch that out to our battery, and check our ground, then we could find out, oh no, that's the problem. We have a bad power lead. That's going to take us to the battery. Example 3. Checking battery voltage. Check at the post and also engine bay ground points. So as you see here, we have the positive test lead on the positive and the negative test lead on the negative. And all is well. However, that could be great. That's just the battery. What we also want to do is take that negative test lead and move that over to the factory ground point somewhere in the vehicle to make sure that it stays the same. That way we could have might not be our amplifier's ground, it could be the car's ground is bad. It could be a bad ring terminal where corrosion got in, water leaked in, and it started to eat up the copper inside. Or it's just loose. Or the factory did a crappy job at grounding the engine. Wouldn't be the first time. So testing it at the battery and then also moving it over and testing at the ground point is great. Now if you have wonderful voltage there, but you still have crappy at the amplifier, example 4, checking voltage after fuse holder. This is one that a lot of guys forget to do. They just assume if the battery voltage is good, then it's going to be good between there. But a lot of the times, the fuse holders can be bad, or the fuse itself. There's a lot of cheap fuses out there that the connection points suck on. Leave the ground lead in place on the negative post. Put positive test lead after fuse holder. This will show a bad fuse or a loose wire. This is also a real common test that you do on CCA wire. When you're, it's like, oh my gosh, why doesn't my CCA wire work anymore? Oh, well, because it's corroded inside the ring terminal. So, great test to do there.
Yeah.
Example 5, checking for accessory power, negative lead to ground, positive lead to fuse. turnkey on and off. So we have a fuse box here. The other symbol that you see underneath the negative ground probe is the symbol for ground in a drawing, as it were, a schematic. So we'll just take that to one of the factory ground bolts, let's say in the kick panel. And on the top of a fuse, if you can see all those little fuses, there's little silver or little like white dots. Those are so that you can test the fuse. So you can take your probe and you don't have to pull the fuse out or anything like that. You can literally stick your probe into the top of the fuse. That's why it's there. And you can check to see if you have positive, or negative, whichever one you're looking for. Make sure that it turns on and off with the car. This also works for reverse lights and testing for remote turn on. On the amplifier, you can do the same exact thing that you see here. Put it in the remote turn on. Make sure that the remote turn on is getting the proper voltage and that your amplifier is not going to shut off. And that, my friends, is part 1